Okay guys, good morning everyone and welcome to our eLotus webinar today. Can you guys all hear me? Go ahead and type yes into the chat room if you can. Oh, you cannot hear me. Yes? Loud and clear? Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, my name is Donna and I will be your host and your moderator for over 2 decades. Oh, let me go ahead. Okay, guys, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our eLotus webinar today. Can you guys all hear me? Go ahead and type yes into the chat room. We offer the largest selection of online CEU courses with over 3,000 CE hours. So if you're new to eLotus, remember to sign up for okay, perfect. Our eLotus account and receive a free Okay, my name is Donna, and I will be your host and your moderator for over 2 decades. As we're all navigating good morning, everyone, and welcome to our eLotus webinar today. Can you guys all hear me? Go ahead and type yes. We offer the largest selection of online. We are happy to hear that many practitioners are taking precautions on preventing COVID-19. If you're new to eLotus, remember to sign up. Boosting the immune system is one way that we can help ourselves defer the virus from entering our bodies. And if you haven't yet, visit our COVID TCM resource page at eLotus.org. Please take a look when you get the chance. On this page, you will find resources on how to treat COVID-19 with TCM official publications from China on both the TCM and Western medicine of what is being done in the hospitals, interviews with Wuhan doctors, and much more. And I'll share the link with you in the chat room shortly too. All right, so before we get started, let's do a quick introduction of Michelle. Michelle Meramour developed the body feedback style of acupuncture that uses palpation techniques combined with classical acupuncture point prescriptions, essential oils, Chinese herbs, and nutritional supplements to help get to the root of people's health concerns. She is a recognized authority and innovator in the health of acupuncture and integrative functional medicine into her practice. Today, Michelle will be sharing a preview of her full Today webinar that's going to be happening this weekend. So if you haven't signed up yet, please feel free to do so. We would love to have you there. And for today, she will be also talking about COVID-19 and how to enhance the immune system. In this 1 hour, Michelle will discuss the autoimmune digestive disorders and how you can treat them with herbs, acupuncture, supplements, and essential oils. So welcome to Modulating the Immune System with TCM, creating a healthy response to coronavirus. Let's go ahead and give a big warm welcome to Michelle. Michelle, can you do a quick testing on your end so you make sure we hear you? Wait, hold on. Okay, go ahead and try again.
All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where you're at. I'm happy to be here and enjoy teaching for eLotus, so thank you for the opportunity to share this information. I've been watching John Chen's seminars and have been very impressed. And what I realized is that I could help enhance how we utilize that information by giving some practical tips and things that I've done in my practice to help prepare my patients to have the best immune response they can have in case they're exposed to the virus. And with the high transmission rate, they say approximately 70% of the people are going to be exposed anyway. So the information that I'm sharing with you is actually what I've implemented in my practice, and I've had really good results. And then you can use that information along with Dr. Chen's webinars to help you kind of put that into practical terms. One thing I would like to say, if anybody has been taking my other online classes, I'm very pleased to tell you my textbook, my first textbook, is finished. It's in the final layout and indexing process. And anybody who's pre-ordered one will get notification probably next week of when it'll be coming out. And I'm very pleased to share that with you guys too. Thanks. So I've been making good use of my stay-at-home time for the last 6 weeks. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's seminar. And first, I'm just curious, has anybody out there had clients that have come down with COVID that have asked you for some, supplements or herbs or what to do with it? I'm just curious how many people have had. We've had a lot of people pretty certain they've had it here in Wisconsin, but there's not enough tests in Wisconsin. The only way you can actually get tested is if you're in the ER. And most of my clients have been able to stay out of the ER and have not gotten tested. So this first webinar is more on what to do kind of in the prevention state. And if we have time at the end, I'll give some tips on what I found for helping people recover afterwards also. No prevention herbs. Okay. There is some feedback from the mic. All right, let me know if I need to do anything with the mic. Okay. So what we're going to do in this hours, we're going to talk about how COVID causes the body to respond differently than other viruses like the flu. So we're going to start to look at that from an allopathic standpoint and a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, and understand better how the immune system is responding to COVID-19. And then we're going to look at how to support the body with TCM to accommodate this different response that the immune system is having to the COVID-19 virus. And we're going to talk about how people can do self-care with acupuncture. I don't recommend seeing patients if they think they have COVID or even possibly have been exposed. But there are self-care points that people can do at home that will help them. And so we'll talk about that, some Chinese herbs, essential oils, and I decided to focus this hour on the transfer factor supplements. They are my go-to for balancing or modulating the immune system to know what to attack, what not to attack, and how to behave. And we're going to go into that in detail. And I like the transfer factor supplements because they can be easily combined with Chinese herbs and or essential oils. I have people take them with Chinese herbs all the time. Okay. All right. So the body has an innate immune system response that starts immediately after it's been exposed to a virus, and it will attack the COVID-19 virus and destroy any of the cells damaged by it. Then what happens is the body's adaptive immune response activates a few days later, and if any of the virus remains, it's supposed to mobilize a variety of forces that include T cells and B cells to finish clearing out the virus. The problem is with COVID-19, the interaction between the innate and the adaptive responses in the immune system are not synchronized right, and they cause this disease progression that ends up in the cytokine storm. So we're going to learn all about those two systems really quick here. So let's look at the flu and how we normally handle the flu. So the flu is a fast-moving infection that attacks certain target cells on the surface of the upper respiratory system and kills almost all of the target cells within 2 to 3 days. The death of these cells deprives the virus of more targets to infect and allows the innate immune response time to clear the body of almost all of the virus before the adaptive system comes into play. So this is the big difference between a regular flu and COVID. COVID-19 targets surface cells throughout the respiratory system, including the lungs. And I have heard from other studies and resources that it can adhere to cells in the digestive tract, in the kidneys, and this study didn't mention that, but I have heard that. It has an average incubation of 6 days, which is a much slower disease progression than the regular flu. So the mathematical model suggests that the adaptive immune response may kick in before the target cells are depleted, slowing down the infection and interfering with the innate immune response or immune response ability to kill off most of the virus quickly. So basically what happens with the flu is the innate response gets in there, kills off most of the virus, gets it all cleaned up. then the adaptive comes in to do the second phase. With COVID, the innate response isn't getting enough time to kill off the virus because the virus's progression is so slow. So what normally would happen in 2 to 3 days with the regular flu is taking 6 days or more with COVID. So this delay, our bodies haven't figured out how to handle this delay yet for some people. And so their adaptive immune system is responding too fast. And then it allows the COVID to take hold again and have almost another wave. The combined effect of the adaptive and the innate immune responses may reduce the virus to a low level temporarily. However, if the virus is not completely cleared and the target cells regenerate, the virus can take hold again and reach another peak. So I think this is why we've heard from a lot of people that they felt a little bit better, then they felt worse, then they felt better, then they felt worse, which is why from a Western standpoint, they don't have any real-time guidelines on the treatment of COVID. It could be, 2 weeks to 2 or 3 months. This study is recommending temporary immune suppression based on studies showing patients with corticosteroids have had a better result than those who did not. So I know this, you've seen this with your patients, okay, yeah. I know acupuncturists, holistic practitioners aren't big fans of corticosteroids, so let's figure out how to get the same result using natural methods. The adaptive immune response. Okay, let's learn about the mechanisms behind this from a Western standpoint first. The lymphocytes are responsible for both the induction and expression of adaptive immunity. Okay? All types of lymphocytes are consistently produced from precursor stem cells residing in the bone marrow. B lymphocytes emerge from the bone marrow and migrate directly to lymphoid tissue. Progenitor T cells migrate from the bone marrow to the thymus, where they undergo maturation that prepares them to respond to an immune stimulus. So the lymphocytes basically start this adaptive immune cells, and some of them go straight from the bone marrow into the lymphoid tissue, and those are the B cells. And then the T cells go to the thymus where they are matured. That's how they get the name T, thymus helper cells. So the innate immune response continued. The naive T cells that migrate from the thymus to mainly the spleen and the lymph nodes. These T lymphocytes can be divided into CD4 and CD8 cells. CD4 plus T cells act as helper cells that induce B cells. CD8 plus T cells proliferate in response to an antigen. CD4 plus T cells can be divided into several subtypes defined by specific cytokines, including Th1, Th2, Th9, Th17, TFH, and T regulator cells. So this is really important. This last line here is kind of what I'm working off of to modulate the immune system, to have that delayed and adaptive response, and to keep the innate side going longer. All right, so cytokines, we're going to talk about those because I know everybody has heard of the cytokine storm. What are cytokines? Cytokines are small secreted proteins that have a specific effect on the interactions and communications between cells. So they're kind of cell messengers. This general term is for several types of cytokines made by different cells throughout the body. There's pro-inflammatory cytokines, and this is what's causing all the problem for the COVID patients and for people with autoimmune conditions also. These pro-inflammatory cytokines include IL stands for interleukin. So it's interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, TNF, which is your transfer or something necrosis factor alpha, are involved in the process of pathological pain. So the same cytokines that cause pain from inflammatory conditions and autoimmune conditions are the same cytokines that are creating the problems for the COVID patients. Now, interleukin 10 is an anti-inflammatory cytokine that represses TNF. I forgot what it is, but something necrosis factor. I knew it like 20 minutes ago before I got on here. The necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, and interleukin 1. Tumor necrosis factor, thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, tumor necrosis factor. So the transfer factor supplements that I'm going to talk about later and this weekend's presentation also can be applied to people who are dealing with cancer. And a lot of people in today's more progressive Western medicine look at cancer as an autoimmune condition because it's the same immune dysregulation that affects people to have too much tumor growth as it does to have autoimmune conditions. So thank you. So that's why this information this weekend is so helpful, and you can apply it to so many different clients, patients. Cytokines involved in COVID-19. The cytokine release syndrome, most of us know it as a cytokine storm, was found to be the major cause of morbidity in patients affected by SARS-CoV and the MERS-CoV. The cytokine release storm is common in patients with COVID-19, and elevated serum interleukin 6 correlates with respiratory failure, ARDS, and adverse clinical outcomes. So it's this elevated interleukin 6 that causes a lot of problems for both autoimmune patients and the COVID. Elevated serum C-reactive protein, a protein whose expression is driven by interleukin 6, is also a biomarker of severe beta coronavirus infection. And actually, one of my clients that is pretty certain she had the COVID virus and has had a more difficult time recovering, she had an elevated CRP and autoimmune state before catching the virus, and she's had the hardest time recovering. So I do think if you have clients who have elevated C-reactive protein, it's better to be proactive with them if you know who they are. So let's kind of look at this from a visual standpoint now. We've got the coronavirus that pretty much attacks and gets into these different cells. So the macrophages go after it, the dendritic cells are exposed, and the monocytes are going to go after it. The macrophages are going to make some of these inflammatory cytokines, and then the dendritic cells makes the interleukin 6. And this is the second half of that picture. So you can see from, let's look at from the macrophage line, you're going to have lymphocyte changes. There's going to be an upregulation of Th17, an upregulation of the TFH, an upregulation of the CD8 cytotoxic T cells, an upregulation of the activated B cell differentiation, and a downregulation of the T regulators. And then if we come through the dendritic cell line, through the middle, we'll see there's changes in the blood vessels. You'll get an increase in vascular permeability, an increase in monocyte recruitment, increase in interleukin 8, which is a neutrophil recruitment, increase in interleukin 6, which causes an extreme amount of inflammation, and then you'll have vascular leakage. Then if we look at it from the monocyte side, here too, you'll end up with issues affecting the liver. So you'll have the elevated CRP, elevated serum amyloid A, elevated hepcidin, elevated fibrinogen, elevated TPO, elevated C3, I'm not sure what those are, elevated ferritin, and reduced albumin. So these are all liver markers, so we can see that the liver is affected quite a bit here by COVID. Yeah, just reading some of the comments here. C3 is complement, okay. Cytokine release changes in immune function. So the lymphocyte changes, the ones we're going to focus on here, this is what I found I could use in creating a practical approach for modulating the immune system, is working off of the lymphocyte changes and the upregulation in Th17 and the downregulation in the T regulators. From the vascular changes, working on decreasing the interleukin 6 because of the increase in vascular permeability and an increase in interleukin 6. So that's what we're going to focus on here for the vascular changes. And liver dysfunction, there's several markers indicating liver dysfunction along with elevated serum ferritin. And my understanding is when the ferritin is too high, it's highly inflammatory. So that even creates more inflammation. And these are the areas that can be helped with acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and the transfer factor supplement. Now we're going to look at it from a TCM perspective. The TCM perspective on the innate versus the adaptive immune response. And we're going to look at it from the initial release of exterior wind, either heat or cold pathogens. I think COVID symptoms actually look a little bit like true heat, false cold. There's not a lot of sore throat. There's not a lot of, some people get it. I think it depends on the person's constitution, whether they have more wind heat symptoms or wind cold symptoms too. The adaptive response is the progression of the disease. So the innate response is when the body is attempting to release that exterior wind pathogen at the initial stage. Then the adaptive response comes in the progression of the disease. And we're going to look at the progression of the disease from combining the two systems, the 6-level disease progression from Shan Han Lun, the discussion of cold-induced disorders, and the Wenbing warm diseases, discussion of epidemic warm diseases. Dr. John Chen did a great job kind of expressing, the different viewpoints from the herbal recommendations. What I found, I do a style of acupuncture for those who aren't familiar with my acupuncture. It's very palpation based, where I'm pressing on different parts of the body to assess meridian function. And I find that the body feedback style of acupuncture works great with the 6-level progression of disease through the body. And in my textbook, I go through a whole chapter on this actually. So what I found is combining the herbal recommendations from Wenbing with the disease progression of Shan Han Lun is what I found works the best with my patients, and I've done this for years. So I'm kind of going to share how I look at it with you guys. So what we have is exterior wind heat, if it's coming in and on the heat side. It's going to pass in through your Tai Yang level and then move into the Yang Ming level, Xiao Yang level. So it goes through the 3 Yang levels first before it transitions into the Yin levels. We've got Tai Yin, then Xiao Yin, and Shui Yin. I'm sure most of you guys are all familiar with this progression. Now we're going to talk about it in detail. So according to Shan Han Lun's 6-level theory, Tai Yang experiences wind cold that transforms into wind heat with initial symptoms of a stiff neck, back, and a headache. So this would be a level where the innate immune system would be kicking in. It would be pushing it all back out to get the body to release the exterior. The Yang Ming channel is the next level. And the Yang Ming channel, so Yang Ming is divided into two subsections. One is channel, one is organ. And I think it really depends on a person's constitution. Like myself, I rarely get a respiratory infection. And if I get anything, it's usually affecting my digestive tract. So for me, a pathogen will make it past the Yang Ming meridian or channel quickly and settle more into the organ for me in the colon. But my husband, for instance, he can eat anything, never gets a digestive problem, but he will often have to fight off respiratory infections that are affecting more of the sinuses and upper respiratory system. So the Yang Ming channel experiences the 4 grates of heat. I didn't detail that here, but we know that with COVID, there's a high fever involved, and the fever often kind of fluctuates if it lingers too long, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the Yang Ming channel experiences the 4 great symptoms of heat, and then the colon organ experiences heat binding with food accumulation, causing symptoms of tidal fever, constipation with abdominal fullness, distension, and pressure. One of the things I've heard about COVID too is that people lose their appetites and they really don't want to eat. I've heard that over and over and over again. And then you also have that kind of chest oppression, and where the whole rib cage, a lot of people have said, feels like somebody's standing on them. So I feel like that's where the COVID gets into the Yang Ming organ pretty quickly too. Mic keeps going. Anybody else having a problem with the mic? No? Okay. Yeah, I went ahead and hooked up directly to the modem with the Ethernet cord, so I know I don't have any problems with my Wi-Fi because I'm not on Wi-Fi. So the Shaoyang, maybe low bandwidth, yep. I did kick my kids off the internet today, and I told them they could not be on during this hour. So they're not on it, but who knows what's going on in the neighborhood. Anyway, so Shaoyang, if the pathogen gets down to the Shaoyang level, there'll be alternating fever and chills, vexation, retching, vomiting, bitter taste in the mouth, lack of thirst and appetite, and dizziness. I think with the COVID, we're not really seeing the vomiting. I think we're also not seeing the extreme cough either. I think it's everything just weighs so heavy in the body. But the alternating fever and chills here is an indication that the pathogen is getting to an even deeper level, and now there's going to be more problems. Because I think it's when the pathogen reaches the Shaoyang level is part of when that adaptive immune response starts to kick in. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So if it passes through the 3 yang levels and gets to the yin levels, now we have the Tai Yin, which will experience wind cold or wind heat, disturbing the digestive system, creating phlegm and dampness, with symptoms of vomiting, diarrhea, lack of thirst, and appetite. So I think this is where the COVID patients are starting to feel really bad. And my experience in talking with people and reading people's stories, this happens at about the week mark when they've been sick for about 6 to 8 days, is what I've seen, and the real lack of thirst and appetite, and all the phlegm production. So all the phlegm production and dampness is a sign that the innate immune system didn't have enough time to fight off the virus, and the adaptive kicked in too soon. Because that's what we learned are the symptoms of the adaptive immune system response with the COVID cytokine storm, because it's the adaptive that sends out those cytokines. Then we get to Shaoyin, experiences severe cold, weakening the heart and kidneys, with symptoms of diarrhea with undigested food, cold limbs, insomnia, and dry mouth. Now, there's a lot of people that are experiencing strokes and kidney damage as a result of COVID. What they're noticing after, like, a lot of the people who are pretty constitutionally weak had a lot of underlying health concerns, like the healthier population, the people who are being exposed to COVID in their 30s, 40s, 50s that are pretty strong and have a good constitution, they're actually having heart attacks, strokes, they're having autoimmune conditions that are coming up in the cardiovascular system. So I think this is where COVID has gotten into the Xiao Yin level. And then the Zhui Yin experiences the most severe pathogens, causing heat in the upper body and cold in the lower body. Zhui Yin is liver and pericardium, and this is where the most severe pathogens will cause problems. And when we looked at it from the Western side, it was the liver organ that kicked in and created quite a bit of dysfunction in response to the COVID virus. And I think that this is probably one of the pathways that end up leading to morbidity, is when the COVID has made it through all 6 layers in the 6 layers of the body, according to the Shan Han Lun theory, and has disrupted the liver function quite a bit. Okay, the cytokine storm in combination with the 6th level theory. So let's look at it. COVID-19 quickly penetrates the Tai-Yang level. That's on day 1. So that's one thing I know we've heard of, is COVID is highly contagious and it affects a lot of people. It has a way of attaching that is highly effective in getting into the body. So it quickly penetrates and passes that superficial layer of the Tai-Yang level. And remember, that's where our innate system is supposed to be kicking things out from. Then the COVID-19 remains active for too long, anywhere from 6 to 14 days is kind of what I've seen in the Yang Ming level with the meridian and organ symptoms. So this is the severe fever for many days people have had, or the waving of the fever kind of going in waves. And I think that the fever going in waves is a representation of the innate and adaptive immune systems not coordinating. So when the innate clears off most of the virus and then the adaptive comes in and then the body starts to do recovery, it allows more target sites for COVID to attach to. Then you get another wave of fever because there's more infection again. So then the body responds with a higher fever, does that for just a day or two when it should be doing it for like 6 days. And then the innate system comes in, the adaptive system comes in, and then the recovery occurs too soon, allows for more cells to be infected again, and then you get that wave of fever, and that can happen to people a couple of times. Then the cytokine storm begins with lymphocyte changes after 6 days when the COVID-19 reaches the Xiaoyang level. And then from there, if it gets out of hand, it will reach the Tai-Yin level, damaging the spleen and the lungs. And that looks like it can happen anywhere from days 8 to 14, from what I could tell from what people were describing in their symptom timeline. Then the COVID-19 and the cytokine storm will reach the Xiaoyin level, causing damage to the cardiovascular and renal systems we talked about. And then COVID-19 and the cytokine storm cause liver dysfunction, and in the most severe cases of infections, leading to death. So that's how I think we can look at it. So this is how we're going to kind of modulate the immune system to respond better to COVID. We're going to look at the Th17, the Tregs, Th1 relationship. So Th17 is high when there's autoimmune conditions, also fungal infections, and chronic candida and yeast infections will cause an elevated Th17. So those are the people that I find often get sick and have a weaker immune system in general and tend to pick up the flu and other viruses, or have chronic viral infections or Lyme's disease, any of these high level of yeast, fungus, or bacteria or autoimmune conditions will create an elevated Th17. So this elevated Th17 has an inverse relationship with the T regulators and Th1. So that means that the body has only so much like thymus helper cell reserves to go around. And if it's choosing to amp up Th17, then it's going to depress the T regs and the Th1. So if Th17, there we go, if Th17 is elevated, then the others are reduced. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump up Th1 and T regulators to down-regulate the Th17. And that's how we're going to look at modulating the immune system to have a better, more effective response to COVID. So creating a healthy response to COVID-19 using TCM perspective with acupuncture, herbs, and natural supplements, what we're going to do is we're going to look at decreasing interleukin-6, which are pro-inflammatory cytokines, to downregulate the adaptive response and increase Th1, and that's also going to downregulate Th17. So Th1 is what's responsible for the innate immune response. Remember, Th1, the innate immune response, is what we need to keep active longer than it would normally stay active. So that's where, from a Chinese perspective, we want to release the exterior for longer than we normally think to do that with the cold and flu. So, and you can see that with the formulas that Dr. Chen was sharing with us. They have ma huang, they have a lot of exterior releasing herbs in there, and they're using these in the prevention phase. And they're using these throughout the early treatment or the treatment phases also. So TH stands for thymus helper cells. Yeah, thymus helper cells. So let's see here. Okay, so we're going to decrease interleukin-6. Oh yeah, so we're going to increase the T regulators, the thymus regulator cells, and we're going to increase thymus helper 1 cells to downregulate the thymus helper 17. And this is the same approach that I've been using with my autoimmune clients for years and getting really good results with. And also the same approach I use for my post-cancer recovery patients. I will assist people through cancer treatments from a Western standpoint. I personally have found that I can do a better job in like recovery prevention and helping to reduce the side effects of the Western medicine. And so I do a lot of cancer support, and this is the same theory that I use for the cancer support. You'll see in a minute, because natural killer cells, which goes after precancerous cells and virally infected cells, is also an inverse relationship to Th17. So we have the body feedback style of acupuncture combines the Shanhong Lung 6-level theory for testing using the meridian system and pulse testing with herbal recommendations from the warm epidemic disease category. So that's what I was talking about earlier. I kind of combine the two. And then I highly recommend, if you haven't already, watching Dr. Chen's coronavirus and TCM scientific research and clinical evidence of Chinese herbs webinars for the explanation and the research on the Chinese herbs. So I was not planning on repeating this information, otherwise I'd have to do like a 3-hour webinar. So you'll have to look that up with Dr. Chen's webinar. And acupuncture, like I said, is self-care with magnets at home. I have a lot of my clients get these 800 Gauss magnetic pellets. And this is where I get them. I get them from Wabo. They're $5.75 for a box of 200. And then I just retail them to my clients so they have them, because they can't buy them direct from Wabo. And then what they can do for the acupuncture self-care is they can apply magnets when going to bed a few times a week, or keep on continually if they feel like they're fighting an infection. So just for prevention, since a lot of our clients can't get in for their regular reoccurring acupuncture, we're just doing a little immune boosting recommendations. So in my system, inflammation is pathogenic heat. And I describe this in detail in my book. The Acupoint categories to clear pathogenic heat include the Jing River and Ying Spring shoe points. We're all familiar with those. Those are the ones on the toes and the fingers right by the nail, and then right here in the webbing. So, why, that's not Jing River. Oh, I see there's a little problem here. Sorry about that, guys. It's Jing Well. Oops, I got a typo. It's Jing Well in Ying Spring. My problem here. Sorry. Jing Well. Then the metal and water shoe points create heat clearing properties that are more nourishing. The metal and the water combination on the yang meridians are the Jing Well and Ying Spring acupoints. Just imagine looking at it saying Jing Well. I missed that. Sorry, guys. And then on the arms, that's Li1 and Li2, Si1 and Si2, triple burner 2, and triple burner 1. So remember, to keep the innate immune system more active and exterior releasing, it's better to focus on the yang meridians. And on the legs, we've got stomach 44 and 45, UB 66 and 67, gallbladder 43 and 44. So these keep the heat clearing pathogens moving out of the yang levels, keeps releasing. So it has that body in that release mode. Here's a little illustration from one of my books explaining how the water and metal clears pathogenic heat. And it's according to the restraining cycle in 5-element theory. The metal and water shoe points, and these are the substitutions I have to use, but if you look at it just like this, the water and metal shoe points clear pathogenic heat. So this is why they're used a lot in my body feedback system. So if the person is feeling like their immune system is kind of weak, or they're exposed to somebody who might have had COVID, or they're going out in the public a lot and they want to do a stronger immune boosting protocol, I would recommend the TCM points, the standard 4 gates, Li4, liver 3, lung 7, triple burner 5, spleen 9, and stomach 40 for the phlegm as prevention or at the initial stage. And these are points that the people can put the 800 Gauss magnets on, the magnetic pellets. They don't need a polarity, like the pellets themselves don't really have a polarity to them, so it's really easy for the clients to put these on at home. Yep, so I still use the Jing Well. So when you want to use those Jing Well points to clear heat is for people who have the Jing Well and the Ying Spring points. As for people who have chronic inflammation conditions, people who have probably an elevated interleukin-6 to begin with, or elevated CRP, if they have joint pain, autoimmune conditions, any type of pain condition, there's inflammation involved. And those are the people that are at greater risk for the more extreme COVID response. So those people, I have putting the magnetic pellets on those Jing Well and Ying Spring points all the time. And I do that in my practice frequently. And in my book, I actually have a whole chapter on self-care that people can do at home, and talk about how I do this and how I have a lot of my clients doing this in between appointments. So, and then I just send them links to like Yin Yang House for the point location. I will be having point location on my website soon, for people to be referring their clients to get the right point location. That's my next phase, probably in the next couple of weeks after the book is finished and released, will be up there. And they can use the magnets. They can put them on at night, and sometimes if they have dry skin, the magnets actually stay on longer. If they use lotions, it's harder to get the magnets to stick. So they're going to want to put the magnets on probably when they get out of the shower and they dry off and the skin is the driest, to put the magnets on the feet. And sometimes they can stay on for 2 or 3 days. The hand points will fall off with washing, frequent washing and hand sanitizing, which we're supposed to do all the time. So those would have to be applied at night. And I usually just tell people to take them off in the morning because they're going to fall off pretty quickly anyway, and just replace them at night when they go to bed. So if they're going to do the TCM points here, they could actually leave those points on for a few days, especially if they think they've had an exposure or they're going to be out and about or they have a weaker immune system, because those points there, I think they're safe enough to keep on long term. I mean, it is definitely an exterior releasing type treatment, but I don't think it's too much that it would damage the yin. Then we've got Chinese herbs to support Wei Qi preventatively. So this is what I've been actually using in my practice for some clients is the Immune Plus from Evergreen. These are the herbs that are in there. The big herb that seems to be so helpful is the Fang Feng, for keeping that exterior releasing, kind of guarding the borders of the body. Also the Jade Windstream screen, which is what Immune Plus is based on, is another option too. I know these are out of stock right now. Hopefully they will be in stock soon. And then I combine Vibrant with the Immune Plus for older or weaker clients. You just need to be aware that it can raise blood pressure. So if they do have high blood pressure, then I will use something that is safer for people with high blood pressure. But the Immune Plus has been a great option. And then for herbs to support Wei Qi preventatively for clients with underlying chronic low-grade illness, low-grade infections, asthma, and respiratory weakness. And I've used this Qing Sheng Fang Fen Tong, hopefully I said it right, formula for years with these clients, and have gotten a really good result. I didn't want to share it with you because it's in stock right now. I made sure I put my order in yesterday to get what I needed for my clinic before you guys all went and ordered it out of stock, because I don't think a lot of people know about this formula, because I've talked to other practitioners about this is what I'm using, and they're like, what is that you're using? This is a great formula. I've used it for years for people, like I said, who have chronic low-grade infections, and they respond beautifully for it, and especially viral infections. I've had a lot of people with reoccurring viral kind of shingle outbreaks and different things like that, and nerve pain from viral infections. That's worked beautiful. Everyone purchase responsibly. Yes, please do. I only ordered 6. And traditional uses from a TCM standpoint, if you look it up in the book, it's to clear pathogenic heat from the upper jowl, the skin, and the eyes. So a lot of times they talk about boils, rashes, venting rashes. Because I do muscle testing for all my herbs, I use the body feedback testing. This is how I figured out this works great for asthma, respiratory conditions. People with COPD even respond well to this. And again, it's got the Fang Fen in it, the Lian Chao. Those two are probably the 2 top for the early prevention stages for COVID. So this is why I know this has worked great, and I've been using it for years. Okay. And then, if the virus seems like it's gotten in a little bit deeper and actually made it to the Tai Yang or Yang Ming level, and the person is starting to have symptoms like COVID symptoms or just even regular flu symptoms, you can use this. This whole webinar protocol you can use for a healthy cold flu season every year. It's the same theory that I do, and I often prepare my clients every year for cold flu season using the same approach. So the Sangju Yin is most appropriate for people with a colder constitution and when it's affecting the digestive system more. Oh, wait. Yeah. So the Sangju Yin is more for upper respiratory with like a cold constitution. And then we've got Huojiang Shenxi Chang. I added this. This isn't in Dr. Chen's seminar, I don't think, but Huojiang, he did talk about as a single ingredient herb that's supposed to be really good for preventing the replication of COVID. So it doesn't necessarily keep it from attaching, but it keeps it from replicating. So, and then this is just a really gentle, mild formula that you can use in a preventative state too. So for people who feel like they have more of the digestive symptoms, this might be a good option to have on hand. And usually I know my clients, you know, I'll ask them when it's cold flu season, are you more inclined to get more of a respiratory cold flu or more digestive cold flu symptoms? So then I have them have this on hand at home because they need to be able to get to it right away as soon as they feel symptoms. So you just find out like which direction their immune weakness tends to go and then just use one of those formulas. And then everybody knows about Yin Chao San because you can't buy it. Well, you can buy it now, I think, but it's definitely one that's going out of stock quickly. And that is more if it's, like I said, gotten into the deeper Yang Ming levels. So what I do is I muscle test people to see if the Yin Chao San or the Lonicera complex is a better option for them. And to be honest with you, it just depends on the person. So I can use the pulse. What you can do is you can set the herbs on the upper abdomen or the chest, and you can feel the pulse, especially the pulse positions on the right side are more related to the yang meridians. So I'm actually doing drive up pulse checking. So my clients are driving up and I go out there with my mask on, my gloves on, and I have a bag that I put these herbs in, and I have them hold it to their chest or their upper body, and I feel how their pulse improves. And whichever herbal formula improves it the most, usually between Yin Chao San and the Lonicera complex, that's the one they end up getting then. Yeah, I think Huojiang is better for the colder constitutions too. And then these are better for the warmer. And they probably should have both. I have people have the Yin Chao San or the Lonicera complex on hand too. Then if it tends to get a little bit deeper and into the Shaoyang level, now you're getting to the half interior, half exterior. And the main formula for that is the Shao Chai Hu Tong. So Dr. Chen talks about why this works so well, but this helps to kind of modulate the immune system. At this point, if the pathogen has reached this level, you'll want to add this to the previous Yin Chao San or Lonicera complex because you want to push it back up and out. That's the whole key, is getting that exterior releasing going again. I use the liver detox formula from Evergreen quite a bit with a lot of my clients. So if you have somebody who's got a constitutionally weak liver or liver dysfunction, this is a really gentle formula that's great long term. So they could have this as the base and then add to it the exterior releasing again. Because I think it's important to kind of push it back up and out. And then if the Chinese herbs get into the Tai Yin level, you could look at recommending the Wuling San or the Simi San, the frigid extremities powder. It depends on how aggressive you want to be in your practice with treating COVID. Or, I mean, at this point, I'm usually telling people you might want to go see your doctor, you might want to go to the ER, you might want to get checked, but take these things with you. But I would use this myself in also in the recovery stage, because what I've noticed with the clients that have gotten the COVID is that they have a lot of lingering phlegm and dampness in the Tai Yin level, and they still have cold hands. Their circulation isn't good, their shortness of breath. And so this is kind of what I'm using more on the recovery side. And I check on the right side because the pulses on the right side are the lung, large intestine, and the spleen and stomach, which is those initial layers in the immune system. So here's some interesting essential oil research I found. First of all, there's zero peer-reviewed studies, and there's one not peer-reviewed study, which I thought was kind of entertaining, but I'm going to share it with you. It was still done like a regular research study, but it has not been peer-reviewed. Essential oils may be helpful for the management of minor flu-like symptoms, including fever, congestion, and immune modulation. The research on essential oils is very limited, however, and it cannot be transferred to clinical use. Okay, so they're not making recommendations based on the research, but I find it's very interesting, and it supports the whole theory of how to modulate the immune system. So the not peer-reviewed one, they're looking at the main viral proteinase, MPRO, 3CL-Pro, that has been regarded as a suitable target for drug design against SARS infections due to its vital role in the coronavirus reproduction. So the study is looking at, okay, how are the drug companies looking at making their drugs? Let's look at what essential oils do to these mechanisms. And the conclusion of the study is that eucalyptus may represent a treatment potential to act as COVID-19 MPRO inhibitor. However, further research is necessary to investigate the potential medicinal use. And I have the links to all these studies for you. I knew I didn't have time to go into them in detail. But there's a peer-reviewed study on the avian coronavirus susceptibility to botanical oleoresins and essential oils. Oleoresins are the thicker resin type essential oil, like your frankincense, your copal, your copaiba, sandalwood, cedarwood. Those are all resins. And they did not disclose what the essential oil blend was. Okay, so they just keep referring it to this as this QR448A. So, and they did it both in vitro and with chickens. So they treated the avian infectious bronchitis virus, the IBV, with this essential oil mix. And what they noticed is that it reduced the virus titer as measured in vero with the E6 cells and in embryonating eggs. And then this is what I thought was even most interesting. The effect of administering this essential oil blend to chickens at a dilution of 1 to 20, a dilution spray, 2 hours before challenging them with the IBV virus was determined to be the most effective treatment. So treatment decreased the severity of the clinical signs and the lesions in the birds and lowered the amount of the viral RNA in the trachea. So it decreased the symptoms, it got them through it quicker. However, the anti-IBV activity of the essential oils is greater prior to the virus attachment and entry, indicating that the effect is virucidal. It means it deactivates or destroys the virus. So what this means is that it's got to be done before the exposure. So diffusing essential oils proactively or preventatively is the way to go here. So the treatment with the essential oils protected the chickens for up to 4 days from the post-treatment from a clinical sign of disease, but not from the infection. So they were treated once with the spray, and for up to 4 days, they had benefits from that spray. And it decreased the transmission of the IBV over a 14-day period. So again, this is our incubation period and when we have to do our self-quarantines. So this potentially could be something that people could use at home if they have to self-quarantine. In addition, the essential oils had activity against both the Massachusetts and Arkansas type IB viruses, indicating that it can be expected to be effective against IBV regardless of stereotype. So you can use it for other types of viruses is what they're proposing. We have the anti-influenza virus activity of essential oil vapors. So that means diffusing. I know we're almost out of time, so I'm just going to go through this quickly, but basically cinnamon, bergamot, and thyme were the strongest to completely inactivate the virus at high dilutions. Lavender and eucalyptus globulus was good, but they needed a higher dilution of those. Sage was partially active. Geranium had some good antiviral activity. Cypress, not really. Cypress is more, actually, I find more antifungal. And among the pure components tested, only the clove showed 100% plaque reduction, and citronella was also helpful. There are two essential oils, bergamot and eucalyptus globulus, and the pure compounds of citronella and clove showed significant activity against the influenza virus following exposure of only 10 minutes. So the vapors of the essential oil phases were able to completely inactivate the influenza virus following exposures of 30 minutes. And these were cinnamon, lemongrass, lavender, and geranium. So this is for the safety. When people think about essential oils, sometimes they are very concerned about the safety of them. So there was some parts of the study that looked at how safe they were, but basically in the vapor form, which means they're being diffused, they are pretty much safe and they're considered non-toxic. There's some toxicity in the liquid form when it's not vaporized, when it's exposed for 24 hours. So this is my recommendation up here. So here's some more information on the virus. So apparently there's two components to viral replication, and cinnamon oil is the only essential oil that completely inhibited this Na portion of the viral replication. So it's really important, I think, to have cinnamon in the formulas. Several of the essential oil vapors evaluated had potential antivirus activity. Almost finished here. So what I like to do is diffuse overnight to cleanse the air, and then the vapors remain in the office for several hours. You can also diffuse for 30 minutes for 2 to 3 hours. Young Living's Thieves Essential Oil Blend has clove, lemon, cinnamon bark, eucalyptus, and rosemary. doTERRA's On Guard is pretty much the same, except for they use orange instead of lemon. So either of those companies, and then there's other companies that have comparable products. There was one research study that was done on, let's see here, what I wanted to show you. Oh, the transfer factor. Shoot, we ran out of time. I'm going to keep going. Is that okay, Donna, if I go just a little bit longer on the transfer factors? Didn't realize I was running this far behind. Transfer factors are extracted from cow colostrum and chicken eggs and appear to be short strands of amino acids and perhaps small bits of RNA. They're thought to be manufactured within the T helper cells to coordinate the immune system. Remember, the T helper cells is one of those that's downregulated with COVID. So the fact that we can get the body to start to work on the T helper cell level is good. So this results in the birth of new T helper cells, natural killer cells, and macrophages, and the conversion of young lymphocytes into Th1 related immune cells, which then decreases Th2 cytokines, and then also increasing levels of Th1 related cytokines on the general strengthening of the Th1 response. So this is the main way in my practice, I get people's bodies and immune systems to convert back to the Th1 dominant. The serum-derived transfer factors stimulate innate immune system to improve survival traits in high-risk pathogen scenarios. This is a study that I found where they used transfer factors on mice and dogs. And the conclusion was basically that transfer factors are an overlooked potential for the prevention and treatment of infectious diseases. And so this kind of just talks about their conclusion and that it's good for viral, parasitic, fungal, and some bacterial infections, as well as immunodeficiencies, neoplasmas, allergies, and autoimmune diseases. So I'm going to talk a lot about transfer factors this weekend if you guys can be there. And this is just some research from Researched Nutritionals. That's the transfer factors I personally use in my practice. And this is just some studies that they have done on their product to be able to substantiate their claims. So they do have research studies on their products. And then I always add the transfer factor to the Chinese herbs, and I have them take them on an empty stomach together, because the transfer factor will work with the Chinese herbs synergistically. They have a product called Transfer Factor Sensitive that's just transfer factor. It doesn't have anything else with it. And that's the one I like to use with the herbs. If you've got clients that are not taking herbs, however, they do have a transfer factor multi-immune that's mushroom free that I would recommend. So in summary, diffuse essential oils daily to cleanse the air. Use the transfer factor supplement on an empty stomach. Start with a lower dose for people with chronic illness and combine with the Chinese herbal formulas as a preventative. Increase or double the dose of transfer factor and combine with herbs to clear active infections and take on an empty stomach. Use the acupuncture self-care with magnets a few times a week. And that's what I've been doing in my practice, and I feel like my clients are very happy, and people are getting through this pretty easily. The reishi may cause more severe cytokine response. I use the transfer factor multi-immune that's mushroom free. I've noticed that a lot of my clients, a lot of them don't test that well for the reishi mushroom in the transfer factor. That's just what I've noticed testing, so I tend to stay away from it myself. I think it depends on the person, but I think a lot of people have yeast and candida and fungal overgrowths that don't respond well to the reishi mushroom. Where do we get transfer factor? You can get it from the Researched Nutritionals. This company right here is where I get it. Yep, I do recommend it, if they don't have any disease or inflammation. The transfer factor is great because it'll go in and clear out like infected cells that might have like low-grade viral infections, or like precancerous cells. So it's just a really good immune booster, and I would have people do this like the beginning of cold flu season once a year. So, I mean, I wouldn't have them do it all year long, but I would have them do one bottle and maybe take a half dose if they're pretty healthy. Yeah, it's great with Hashimoto's. I use it with Hashimoto's all the time. It's my there. If you guys send me an email, oh, here's my information. If you send me an email, oh, there's the studies. If you guys want to see all the studies, if you want to send me an email, I'll give you the magnet chapter, part of my chapter on my book. I can just send that to you because it's got all that in there. I would be happy to do that. So if you want more information on anything I said, just send me an email because I can just send you that part of my textbook. Thank you, guys. I know I went a little bit over. I appreciate your time and your patience. Yep.
Okay. Hi, Michelle. Thank you. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And again, thank you to Michelle for this great webinar. There's a lot of great information here. I hope you guys were able to write it down. If not, this class has been recorded. So if you would like to rewatch it, it will be available tomorrow on our TCM Wisdom Tube. And once again, Michelle will be hosting 2 full-day webinars, and I'll post the link for you in the chat room. The first day will be on autoimmune digestive orders and how that's treated. Monday, and that's treating autoimmune pain disorders using the body feedback acupuncture method. So we hope to see you guys there. Registrations are still open, and you have up until the morning of the class to sign up. Great, thank you guys so much. And one more thing, I'm going to go ahead and add the poll back into our webinar room right now. If you can go ahead and answer it. Our question is, would you like to receive text message reminders for webinars that you've registered for, or if you'd like to receive text messages for upcoming promotions and freebies that we might be having? Okay, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.